we've had a very good summary of the situation from F.W. de Klerk, in terms particularly of the way in which problems exist as much, in fact more, within and between countries. And we've also had a survey of the various instruments that exist. But actually, we've also got to be realistic about this. We're not going to solve the problems simply by adopting new protocols or agreements. We have plenty of them. What we have is, in some areas, we've got serious problems which could result in very catastrophic outcomes if we don't actually handle them properly. When I say that, I'm going back to the years after the fall of the wall and the optimism that we had about situations at that time. But now, looking back at them, we can see that we made some serious mistakes. One of which I'll just take two examples of what I had in mind. One of them concerns the problems in the South China Sea and the way in which the Chinese have been quite aggressive in dealing with that area. In the early stages of this, I had a conversation with a senior minister from the Philippines who described to me an encounter he had with the Chinese representative. The Filipino had very little chance of getting words out in this encounter. He was lectured, shouted at, told that he had to accept what China was dictating, and when remonstrated with, the Chinese pointed to the map and said, South China Sea, that means all of this sea is Chinese. And they've acted in accordance with that. I said to the minister, well, what about the United Nations on the law of the sea? And the minister said, when the Chinese adhered to the law of the sea, they put in a reservation with regard to the South China Sea. Now that should have been a warning to us. But if the Chinese at the very outset had put in a reservation about this, that was an indication that they wanted to have a free hand in it, and we should have acted on that. We've now left ourselves with a very difficult situation, which has to be dealt with when you consider the amount of shipping that goes through that area. It's almost, as it were, similar to the Gulf of Hormuz in being transferred to the east, and both are equally important. Another example, which probably is well known, concerns Bill Browder, who after the collapse of communism decided that he wanted to help the Russians. Bill's background is that his father was the leader of the Communist Party in the United States of America, and he thought he would be welcome in Russia going there, but not so. Shortly after being there, he found out, or his employee discovered, that there was a massive fraud being undertaken by some government officials against the Russian state. This Mr. Magnitsky was the lawyer who discovered this. He went to the authorities to report it. The result was that he was immediately imprisoned, and then later he was beaten to death in a government cell. Now, you'd have thought that might have produced a result from the government of Russia. Putin did come. He congratulated the criminals and said nothing to. In fact, Browder was hunted, and still is hunted by the Chinese over this. That gives you an insight into the character of the state that we're dealing with. We must not have illusions about these matters. We're dealing with people who are ruthless, do not accept our values, and if we think that we can get around this by dealing with, in some way, encouraging people to behave in a way that we consider appropriate, I'm afraid in these areas we come up against the limitations of what law can do. I want to just mention very briefly something which I think has to lie on the conscience of the people of the United Kingdom, which I am one, and that is what has happened in Hong Kong. I'm sure you've all seen the demonstrations that have been going on in Hong Kong for months now, where people are demonstrating for basic democratic rights. They believe they were promised that in the agreements that established or at least were to provide some caution, or at least cover, for the people in Hong Kong after the handover of the Hong Kong in various forms to China. The Chinese government has continually threatened over the last few months that it might take violent action against the protesters. There's very little we can do, but I fear that if things go badly, we'll have a lot of things in our conscience about this. As I say, we have to be realistic about the way the situation is. It's not going to be cured by good speeches or even better agreements. We have to we have to look at the people we're dealing with. And I just want, at the very last, just to refer to a suggestion that F.W. de Klerk made at the end of yesterday's debate on nuclear matters and about what to do if we really want to see the nuclear bombs and material limited, or at least destroyed or worn down. He said, and I think he's absolutely right, saying that you're not going to get the governments to do this. Your best way to do this is to influence the thinking of their people. And that is the way to persuade the governments to change, by finding, and I'm sure you will find, that there is a desire within their people for change.